Good evening, Second Baptist, and all of our friends and viewers from wherever you might be. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. We are really excited about having you share with us tonight, and we are thankful that you allowed us to come into your homes. We've got a really special show tonight and the program tonight, and we've got a wonderful guest that you need to be a part of this tonight. We have Dr. Danjal from Penn Medicine. Pulmonary out of Summers Point is going to share with us today, and we are really excited about him coming on and being a part of the program tonight. So there's going to be some really important information that you're going to receive tonight, and so make sure you tag some folk, you get some people as a part of this, get your family together, and anyone who may have questions about the COVID vaccine, you need to be a part of that as well.
Amen. So we want to say hello, at least I want to say hello. It's actually kind of good to be able to come back and share with you on today. I'm ever so grateful for allowing us to be in your presence. Want to give God a shout out for the word on today, that we know that God can do it and he's able to sanctify us and keep us whole and make us holy. And draw us into being the type of people he wants us to be. So we are ever so grateful for the word. Also want to share a word with our parents to let them know that our children's church page has started, thanks to Sister Lourdes Townsend. Unlike a lot of the things that are on Facebook, the children's church ministry is not on Facebook. There will be a way to access it through Facebook, the church's Facebook page, but the children's church ministry page is on the church website page at second, SECONDAC.org. So we are asking you to check it out, take your child or take your children and visit that page and tell us what you think about it. We just want to engage our kids. We put it on that page because we wanted it to be safe, and we want our children to have us be in an environment where it is safe. So God bless you. Check us out, and we hope you like it.
We want to do say Happy Valentine everyone as well, and for those of you who are out on your dates, Happy Valentine's. I said that already, baby, and I'll take care of you tomorrow. We also want to remind you, we want to thank you again for your support, for getting the information out to our seniors 65 years and older for the COVID vaccine tomorrow. We were able to register almost 260 people for the vaccine tomorrow. And if you have not received your call yet, give me a call and so we can check on it. But my understanding, everyone on our list have been called and given a time slot for tomorrow for your vaccine. If you did not receive it, give me a call so we can work that out for you by tomorrow. Again, thank you so much. We're going to have just a quick song from this morning, and that'll give us the time to get straight for our interview with Dr. Danjal, and we're excited about him coming on. So make sure you get everybody to come on and share this with everyone you can, because this is going to be very important, and you need to be a part of this tonight.
Amen.
Consecration. Consecration. By the renewing of your mind. In prayer. Oh, consecration. Presenting your body, yeah, a living sacrifice. Holy, acceptable unto God. Come on, one more time. Consecration. Oh, consecration. Oh, presenting your body.
enjoyed that selection from the choir today. I know it was a blessing to you. It empowered us, and so we are thankful for them. Today we want you to tune in. It is so important today, even as we talk about COVID and vaccines, and we know that there's still some people who are resident about taking the vaccine, and so today we want to clear up any kind of misconceptions, get some science, get some facts, and so we have Dr. Njal who's joining us today. And we want to welcome you today to the program, Dr. Njal. Welcome to Family Check-In.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Good. Dr. Njal is with Penn Medicine out of Summers Point, and we're grateful to have you, Doc. So tell us a little about yourself, and tell us, as we're going through this pandemic, and many of our constituents and membership and friends have some real deep concerns as relates to the COVID vaccine, and even understanding the effects of COVID. And I know you're a pulmonologist in terms of how it affects the lungs, and it seems to attack the lungs more than anything else. So jump right on in, Doc.
Okay, so just a little bit of background. I was originally born in India, but actually I grew up in Camden County, so I'm from South Jersey. I went to Rutgers for undergrad as well as for medical school. My undergraduate degree is actually in biochemistry and microbiology, so this is kind of right up my alley. After medical school, I did my residency and fellowship at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, and then I was in Detroit at the Detroit Medical Center for 19 years, where I was an ICU director. So, pulmonologist in critical care medicine. I re-entered the area in October of 2019 when I joined Penn Medicine. So that's kind of my professional resume. So as I was telling Judy when she was telling me to prepare for this talk, I've been preparing for this one all my life.
Hey.
So before I want to, was there something?
No. I was just saying. When I was looking at looked you up for a few minutes, and it talks about all the things you are expert in, and it was more than I could read. It was so many areas of medicine, and when it comes to pulmonology, you were just a whiz, and we're just grateful to have some of your expertise on the program tonight.
Thank you again. Before we start talking about COVID, I really want to go into a little bit of background. A lot of people have a little bit of misconception about respiratory disease and influenza. We compare COVID to influenza. People have a misconception as to what influenza actually is. Most people think that when they get the common cold, which is basically a group of viruses that make up non-fatal coronavirus, adenovirus, respiratory syncytial virus, those are three viruses that make up the common cold, seasonal cold. And when people get them, they colloquially say that I had the flu. Those viruses are not true influenza. Influenza is a different disease that we get seasonal vaccines for, and has about a 70% uptake in the community. So we don't really see pandemics of influenza because we have a pretty good coverage against influenza in the United States, and we see regional outbreaks of influenza. Real influenza, I personally had 3 times in my life because of my occupational hazards. And I can tell you it's not a joke. I got treated with Tamiflu. I lost muscle mass. I was sick for days. I was so weak I couldn't get out of bed. Influenza has a fatality rate of 0.2%. And every year we see about 30,000 deaths nationwide from real influenza. I got treated with Tamiflu. I was so weak I couldn't get out of bed. Fatality rate of 0.2%, 30,000 deaths nationwide. I personally take care of these in the intensive care setting when I was in Detroit, and is about 5 times more deadly than influenza. Not the flu, but real influenza. So when we talk about COVID, we're we're really talking about a disease that most people who think they've had the flu really, have no basis for comparison against. So this thing is about 5 times worse than influenza, and that's why, a lot of people are being sick from it, and we don't have any background immunity against it, which is why so many people are falling sick and so many people are having such detrimental effects, both permanent damage to their bodies as well as death. Okay, so that's a little bit of background as far as comparing influenza and the flu and this present COVID-19 outbreak. So, influenza vaccine, the one that we get every year, is a killed vaccine. So it's a vaccine that's grown in chicken eggs, and every year millions of chicken eggs are sequestered and used for the manufacture of the influenza vaccine. And each dose is prepared in one egg, and the vaccine is taken out of there, it's heat killed, and then prepared, purified, and prepared to be injected into people. Okay, so you get a killed vaccine for the influenza vaccine. COVID vaccine, as you may have heard Dr. Fauci say, it's really a manufactured vaccine. It's not grown in chicken egg, and the vaccines that are available in the United States are and the egg, and the vaccine is taken around it to be injected into people for the influenza vaccine. COVID vaccine is really a live vaccine. The vaccines that are available, there's the mRNA at the present time that we're hopefully to be soon approved, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And then there's the live killed vaccines or other attenuated vaccines or killed vaccines which are not available in the United States and haven't been tested yet. We've seen very little data on them. And that's the vaccine that's being offered in China and India right now for local manufacturing. Is there any questions that we have so far?
Well, you've already covered a lot of information already. So tell us a little bit about the new COVID vaccine and in terms of it's different from the regular, as you said, the influenza vaccine. I did get my shot, and we're grateful that I guess because of mask wearing and washing of hands, there's not a real major influenza outbreak this year.
Yes.
But tell us about the mRNA vaccine a little more. Can you? And why is it safe?
The mRNA vaccine?
Yes, and why is it safe?
The term mRNA stands for messenger RNA vaccine. So what happens, the way these vaccines are designed is that the spike protein, so if you see the coronavirus, you see a ball with spikes sticking out of it.
Right.
The spike protein, the tip of the spike protein is the area of concern, both from an inflammation standpoint and from a inactivation standpoint. So if you can make a antibody that covers up that spike, you've inactivated that vaccine, and you've marked that vaccine for destruction by the defense mechanisms of the body. Okay, so when an antibody binds to a virus, okay, if it's binding against the binding site of the virus, it inactivates the virus. And the part of the antibody that sticks out of the virus when it's stuck to the virus, it marks that virus for destruction by the white cells of the body. So the vaccine will not only not let you get that sick, it may actually stop you from getting sick at all because it inactivates the virus as it enters the body. So what has happened, over the past couple of decades, let me back up again about these vaccines, how they're manufactured. If you go back 100 years when the influenza vaccine was developed, it was around World War I. It took over a decade to develop the method of growing the vaccine and purifying it and then injecting it into people. So in fact, not historically speaking, making vaccines has been a very slow process. When I was in undergrad, we were doing DNA sequencing as part of my degree in undergraduate biochemistry and microbiology, and all the sequencing and checking of the DNA figuring out what the sequencing was about would take weeks and weeks. So the tools are very crude at that time. We can actually thank President Obama for doing something called the Human Genome Project in 2008, where a lot of money was put in to sequence the human genome. And the project at the time was thought it was going to take about 70 years to complete, given the tools at the time. But since, there was a lot of, mental capacity and money thrown at the problem, human sequencing was completed in about 5 years. Okay, so we were able to sequence the entire human genome in significantly less time than we thought possible when the project began. And those same tools are being used right now to make the vaccine. So some people's concern that this vaccine has been made so quickly about chemistry and microbiology, and all the sequencing was made so quickly, was because the tools to make that vaccine so the years and really accelerated in 2008. In 2008, a lot of money was put in to sequence the human genome, and thought it was going to take about 70 years to complete at the time. But since there was a lot of capacity and money thrown at the problem, completed in about 5 years.
Wow.
Significantly less time than and those same tools are being used to concern that this vaccine is because the tools to make that vaccine so quickly and really accelerated the Human Genome Project was announced. That's part of the reason why the building blocks for it almost 12 years ago. So when we look at the sequencing, we have literally and just make the part that we're interested in, the tip of the spike, rather than the transmembrane portion of the spike. So not the shaft of the spike, but just the tip of the spike. We're going to take that segment and we're going to make sure it folds properly into the package we want it to happen. And we do that on a computer. Okay, so you don't even need to do it and test it. You can simulate it on a computer. And then you package it either in a liposome, which is what the Pfizer vaccine is, okay, which is basically a little fat globule. So you package the mRNA inside a little fat globule, and you make lots and lots of little fat globules, and that's why it's unstable, because those fat globules will coalesce into one big blob unless you keep it really cold. Mm-hmm. Okay, and while it's still cold and those little fat globules are still dispersed, you inject it into the person and it disperses into the person. The Moderna vaccine uses a slightly different technology. You take the same spike protein. So Moderna and Pfizer use the same spike protein sequence. Okay, they chose the same sequence, and they package it inside. So you package the mRNA, and you make lots and lots of little those fat globules will cold. Okay, and while they'll disperse, you inject it into the person and it disperses. Moderna vaccine uses a slightly different. So Moderna and Pfizer chose the same sequence, and they package it in iners. So the same common cold. They use the outer envelope of the common. That vaccine is slightly more stable than the liposome vaccine of Pfizer. So that's why you don't have to refrigerate it quite as much as the Pfizer vaccine. Wow. So that's how the vaccines are made. That's why they were made so quickly. So they were begun to be studied fairly quickly. And while the studies were going on to see if they were safe, both Moderna and Pfizer invested a lot of money, almost $1 billion each, to manufacture the vaccines when they were still unsure that they worked. So if they didn't work, they were going to blow $1 billion each. So if they worked, they were going to get to market a lot quicker. So that's how the process of making these vaccines happened so quickly. No corners were really cut, other than they threw money at the project. So the only corner that got cut was the money people said, no, we're gonna risk it. We'll gamble some money. So that's how it happened so fast. So the qualm about these vaccines are made very quickly. Maybe they're not tested properly. That they haven't gone through the full rigor of scientific evaluation before they've been given to people is really not true. It's just it's a miracle, and we should treat it as such. And the other miracle actually is that that these vaccines are 90+% effective. I mean, we should thank our stars if that's the case. So these vaccines are tested properly. scientific, not true. It's just it's a miracle. We should that these vaccines are 9+. That's the case because we were hoping for 7. It's another miracle.
So you're saying that, in your opinion, the vaccines are completely safe?
Well, they're as safe as vaccines can be. Okay, so what does that really mean? Okay.
Right.
There's a joke actually about doctors. Okay, and this is the problem with how doctors talk. If you ask a doctor, will the sun come up in the east tomorrow? The answer will be probably. Okay, because nothing is 100% certain. Okay, and just like that, vaccines are not 100% safe. Okay, so am I gonna tell you that they're 100% safe? No, they're not. Okay, but is the overwhelming odds in your favor of taking a vaccine versus not taking a vaccine? Yes. Okay, if you develop COVID, your chance of having permanent harm or death is somewhere around 5%. Okay, are you gonna have measurable lung loss from COVID or up to death? Okay, so on one end you have measurable lung loss, on the other end you have death. The risk of that is around 5%. So 1 person in 20 is going to have permanent harm from developing a COVID infection. Okay, those numbers may be off because we don't really know what the denominator is, but right now those are the best numbers I have for you. Okay, so you can argue, you can quibble about that it's 3% or 5% or whatever, but it's around 1 in 20. So what's the negative outcome rate for getting COVID vaccine? 0.00075%.
Wow.
As far as we can tell. Okay, so it's at least 1,000 times less deadly than COVID.
Wow.
Minimum.
Well, that's a great odd. I mean, that's good to hear. Someone has a question before, Doctor. Before you go, someone has a question about the COVID vaccine. If a person had Guillain-Barré syndrome and can't take a flu vaccine, can he take this vaccine?
Interesting question. Guillain-Barré, okay, is actually a reaction to self-antigens, and there's a cross-reaction between the flu vaccine and neurologic tissue. It's pretty rare, but it does happen with the influenza vaccine. The incidence of Guillain-Barré with the COVID vaccine is that there's been 1 reported case. Okay, so was that reported case a random event and the person was going to develop Guillain-Barré anyway and it was unrelated to the COVID vaccine? Or was it truly 1 case of Guillain-Barré among the 32 million doses of COVID vaccine that's been given? Honestly, I can't answer that question, just like I can't answer the question that, is the sun going to come up tomorrow? But I don't think so. So probably yes, is what I'm going to say.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but that's not doctor's talk.
I understand. Well, maybe another question is.
If I had Guillain-Barré from the influenza vaccine, I would take it. Okay, how's that?
Yeah.
Answer.
Okay, that's far more clear.
Okay.
Is there any preparation a person should take before they take the vaccine, like loading up on zinc or vitamin D or anything else before they take the vaccine?
Actually, the recent study about vitamin C and zinc with COVID was that it doesn't work. So I don't think that that's going to be very helpful. We recommend Tylenol or Motrin for the symptoms, but not steroids.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, because steroids will blunt the immune response. So let's talk a little bit about the immune response as to what you're trying to achieve with the vaccines. Okay, there's 2 types of immunity that are achieved with vaccination. One is antibody immunity, and the other one is T-cell immunity. So T-cell and B cells. B cells manufacture antibodies, and T cells in your body are really kind of the memory cells of your defense system. Oh, by the way, there's a Netflix Netflix series called Cells at Work, which I do recommend. It's actually it talks about human defenses. It's meant for kids, but it's not bad actually. So you want to take a look at it. They do discuss B cell immunity and T cell immunity in that TV show. So it may be worthwhile for people who have basic questions. So anyway, getting back to this, there's B cell immunity and T cell immunity that you're going to stimulate with the vaccine. B cell immunity is generating antibodies against the vaccine, and you may have heard that the antibodies against COVID tend to drop off after about 5 months, but some of the research shows that the T cell immunity lasts for years. So we don't really know how long the vaccine is going to last. We know it lasts a minimum 5 months. So it probably lasts a lot longer, but we don't know how long. And we're not going to know that until a couple of years go by. So that's a question that cannot be answered at this time.
Yeah. Well,
so when you give the vaccine, the reason why both the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines are 2 shots is because those mRNA vaccines, they hit your body fairly quickly and they dissipate quickly. So within 24 hours, all the mRNA fragments that were injected into the person are gone, and you've turned some of those messenger RNA fragments into COVID spike proteins, and then the body learns to fight them. Initially, the body generates an antibody called IgM, immunoglobulin M, and unfortunately, that's a fairly weak antibody. But that's the initial antibody that the body generates against an attacker. So we give the second shot to convert the B cells that are making IgM into making IgG, immunoglobulin G, which is about 20 times stronger than the IgM at inactivating and marking the virus for destruction. So that's why it's a 2-shot vaccine. So then the next question, that people have is, well, does that mean that the single-shot vaccines are not as good as the 2-shot vaccine? Why are they only giving 1 shot of those 1-shot vaccines? Well, those are DNA vaccines, and the release of DNA into the system is slower than the messenger RNA. So those shots actually last a few days. So it actually, converts IgM to IgG already with 1 shot. And they're probably a little bit more gentle, so you'll probably have fewer side effects from them. Probably we think they may not be as strong as the mRNA vaccines. That's still to be determined. So the next question that is raised is, since we have 2 different types of vaccines coming up, which vaccine should I get? And the correct answer to that one is the one that's available to you. Okay, so if you're offered the Pfizer vaccine, take the Pfizer vaccine. If you're offered the Moderna vaccine, take the Moderna vaccine. If you're offered the J&J vaccine or the AstraZeneca vaccine, I would have no problems taking either of those. Now, some people are discussing, that the J&J vaccine has only a 65% or 75% response rate versus 95% for the Moderna and Pfizer vaccine. I would tell you that that's really not an apples-to-apples comparison. Okay, so when the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines were studied, nobody over 65 was injected with those vaccines. When the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines were studied, there were no other variants from South Africa, Brazil, and England, in the picture. So relatively healthy people who were younger age were given Moderna and Pfizer. Those are the people that respond best to vaccination anyway. And the J&J vaccine said, everybody, come on in, we're going to give it to you. And so they had people who were 70 plus years old getting the J&J vaccine. They had people who were exposed to the South African variant. In fact, one of the arms of the study was in Brazil. One of the arms with 1 shot. And they're probably a little bit more gentle, so you'll probably have fewer side effects from them. Probably we think they may not be as strong as the mRNA vaccines. That's still to be determined. So the next next question, that is raised is, since we have two different types of vaccines coming up, which vaccine should I get? And the correct answer to that one is the one that's available to you. Okay, so if you're offered the Pfizer vaccine, take the Pfizer vaccine. If you're offered the Moderna vaccine, take the Moderna vaccine. If you're offered the J&J vaccine or the AstraZeneca vaccine, I would have no problems taking either of those. Now,
Dr.
some
Najal,
people are discussing, that the J&J vaccine has only a 65% or 75% response rate versus 95% for the Moderna and Pfizer vaccine. I would tell you that that's really not an apples to apples comparison. Okay, so when the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines were studied, nobody over 65 was injected with those vaccines. When the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines were studied, there were no other variants from South Africa, Brazil, and England, in the picture. So, relatively healthy people who were younger aged were given Moderna and Pfizer. Those are the people that respond best to vaccination anyway. And the J&J vaccine said, everybody, come on in, we're going to give it to you. And so they had people who were 70 plus years old getting the J&J vaccine. They had people who were exposed to the South Africa variant. In fact, one of the arms of the study was in Brazil. One of the arms of the study was having. So, we talked a little bit about the science of quantifying the number. Okay, people still have, and this is different than yes.
Dr. Najal, we've had a little bit of technical difficulty. We don't know what's going on, but I'll tell you, so far the information has been just invaluable. One of the things we do want to ask Dr. Najal, we're trying to get him back on. What if someone's asking the question, what is best for the African Americans, and how do we get the information that is particular to we know that many of our African Americans and brown people, black and brown people, are more affected by this than COVID than any others, and so we want to deal with that a little bit if we can get Dr. Najal back on. So we're working through that. I'm glad it slowed down a little bit because the information was coming in so fast, whizzing our brains a little bit. But we'll see if we can get him back on in just a second. But while we're working on that, we do want to thank all of you for tuning in tonight, and we want you to share it because there's so many people who are at risk, at a greater risk for COVID, and there are a lot of us that have fear of getting the vaccine. And
so people can have a reluctance to take the vaccines because that they know the science, they know they should have a fear.
You just cut me off, dude?
Yeah. You still on.
Oh. Oh, thank you. We're gonna try to get him back on again at another date or time because we've had some real technical difficulties tonight. But we're grateful for you sharing tonight and hope that what information you were able to see was beneficial. Now, I do want to ask you again, for those of you, and some of you responded tonight that you didn't get your call, please call me on my cell or my wife on the cell so we can make sure that we work it out for you tomorrow. We may not be able to get it done tonight, but first thing in the morning we'll be on it to make sure that you get your schedule for your vaccine. It's that important to us. And we want you, for those who've already done it, we want to make sure that you get a shot in the arm and not allow that vaccine to go to waste, because we've already scheduled for, I think, almost 680 people tomorrow. So we want to make sure that you get your shot. So please call me, and we'll get right on that first thing in the morning. We're grateful for each and every one of you, and I do want to thank all of you for getting the information out to your aunties and your parents and cousins and people in the community who really need this shot. And please encourage everyone that that can to go ahead and sign up somewhere, either on the state site or Atlantic Care or somewhere, to get on the schedule to get your vaccine. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we'll work on that, getting Dr. Dunjal back on again. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you on Wednesday night. God bless you, everybody.